Thank you very much, Cornelia. My name is Cieliebak, and I want to talk about this question. Basically, I want to explain how you can tackle the problem if you have a huge amount of documents incoming every day. So let me start with maybe 3 examples from projects. You're laughing. So this is if you do your tax report in Switzerland, you have to do all the stuff, which is ridiculous work for one person. But if you're on the other side, receiving all of these documents from all Swiss people, you can imagine that you have a huge amount of documents coming in every day. And that's not only for tax reports, but it's also true for health documents. If you are an insurance company, you have all these incoming health documents, medication prescriptions, and stuff like that. So there's a huge amount of documents. Or if you do media monitoring, we are doing a project where they want to do reputation monitoring for huge companies worldwide, and they receive, the company receives 300,000 news documents every day. So there's no new way to process them manually. So obviously we have to do something. Or if you're in a customer service in a huge company like with Swisscom in the morning before, then obviously you have a huge amount of incoming text documents, and you need to find a way how to track them, how to cover them. And what I'm going to present is based on joint work with Marcel Canclini, who is now working at my company, and he did his master at Zurich University of Applied Sciences, which is okay, but you cannot pronounce Z-H-A-W in English. You can try. Z-H-A-W is really a ridiculous name, so Z-H-A-W is used usually. Okay, so how can you process large amounts of documents, and what do you want to do? I mean, you can process them, you can extract information, but in the end you want to trigger some information, some activities, and usually you have predefined activities based on what your document contains. And I will look at some of them in a moment. So maybe if you're in customer support, you want to trigger some automatic replies. Someone asks, how can I reset my password? You want to detect, oh, this is a standard question, I just sent him a link, how to reset his password. Or if I have a huge amount of documents in tax reports, I want to route the documents to the proper archive and store them there. Or if I have, say, the request to change my password or change my address, and I write it in an email, then I want to extract from the email that it is an address change, and automatically adapt the database with a new address. Okay. How do we do that? Well, the basic technology to do that is document classification. Now, I'm not aware of the expert knowledge here in the room, so who knows already how document classification works with machine learning? That's the right half of the room, the left half, and Thilo in the back row. Okay, so document classification, the idea is basically you take the documents, you run some text analytics algorithms on the document and classify it in some predefined classes, like for sentiment analysis, which is somewhere on the slide in the second line. You have the classes positive, negative, or neutral, and you say, okay, this document belongs to the positive class, the next document belongs to the negative class, and so on. And if you're in customer support and you get a negative document, you want to react to it because you want to keep the customer. If it is positive, you want to forward it to your boss and say, look, this is a nice tweet about our company. And there are different standard problems, and for each of these problems there exist already very good solutions that you can use out of the box. And I'm not going to talk about these solutions, but I'm going to talk about the more sophisticated cases where you have custom documents and your problem doesn't fit in one of these standard problems. What you're going to use is machine learning, supervised machine learning in 10 seconds. So what you have is 2 phases, a training and identification phase. In the training phase, you take your documents and you make out of these documents so-called features, and features are a numerical representation of what is written in your document. That is an art to create proper features. And then for each document you have the corresponding labels, which is for sentiment, positive, negative, or neutral. and you run it through a machine learning algorithm. There are basically hundreds of them, and you get a predictive model. And now for a new document, you extract the same types of features and predict the label whether the document is positive or negative. This is standard technologies, and all the research that is going on basically is here in the machine learning algorithms, how to create good algorithms and how to find the proper features. Or if you do the deep learning approach today, then you skip the feature extraction and they are learned also. Just to briefly mention how it works. And now I want to go into one showcase for medical documents where we have to identify what kind of documents are coming into an insurance company or to a health agency. So there are very different documents that can come in. That's prescriptions, of course, from the doctor, where you go to the pharmacy, and you send it afterwards to your insurance company to be refunded, or there is some Patientenanmeldung, which is registration for radiology, and you have the data about the patient and what needs to be done, or you have some report of a doctor to another doctor, what is the diagnosis that he found, and all these documents have to be processed in some health insurance company. And the first step is always to take the document, well, scan it, of course, using OCR to detect what is the text in the document, and then decide what to do with the document. And this is a text classification problem that we are going to look at. So how can we detect what kind of document is it? Is it a registration? Is it a prescription? And so on. We built a tool for that, for one system, which is medical information system. So the first step is that you need to have the labeled data for each document. So we say, okay, there is about 20 different types of documents that might come in, and the tool that just displays the document, and the user has to click one of these buttons to say what it is. And this is a prescription or a radiology bill, image or whatever. And so he can click through all the documents, and this, well, gives us some labeled data that we can use for training our algorithm. And in the first phase, we let them label something like 3,000 documents and analyze how many of the different types of documents we got. I'm standing in the way, probably. Sorry. And we figured that, well, that's cool. 3,000 labeled documents, and we have for medical results of an examination 1,000 documents. But for, say, a medical plan, we only have 31 documents. So it's very, very unbalanced, and we had to decide what to do. And we figured also that, well, these are the most interesting classes of those which are underrepresented, and we wanted to have more of them. And if we take random documents, we will probably get a lot of results again, and not very many of these delivery nodes. So what we did was we had a second phase, and for the second phase we built a classifier based on these documents, which pre-classified each document to say, oh, this is a result document, we have already enough labels for that, and this is probably a delivery node. Well, the classifier was not very good, but it was good enough to route the documents into the proper direction, whether we have to label it manually or not. So these are the F-scores, the measurement about how the classifiers were. It's between 0.18 and 0.92. So they were already sometimes pretty good, but also very bad. And it was only an indication which of the documents have to be labeled manually. And then we did a second phase where we labeled especially documents in this area which were very interesting to us, and we skipped those ones which were not interesting to our case, for the business case. Which helped a lot to reduce the amount that we had to do, the amount of work that we had to do. Okay, and then on top of that we built now on our training data, which was about 5,600 documents, we built a classifier. Well, actually we built 6 classifiers, 6 different machine learning algorithms, and compared them and found out that support vector machines and XG boosting worked best, and this is the result for the support vector machines. And what you can see here is the class of documents that we are interested in, and this is basically the F1. This is the F1 score, which shows how good we can detect these classes. So these documents are very easy to separate by a machine, which is obvious because if you think about a medical report and a prescription, the terminology, the words that are used in the text are very, very different documents. So this works pretty good, but we were even surprised that it works that good because it was only a very small number of documents that we labeled manually. The next step is taking one document and extracting the information that is in the document, because, well, now we know that we have a medical report. We want to know for which patient is it, who was the doctor, what was, say, the diagnosis, what is the next medication, and so on. So we have to segment the document into different parts where we say, okay, this is one address, this is a date section, this is maybe the signature, and this is the main text. And based on that, we can now go into the information extraction and say, oh, in the main text, now we can extract what is the date, the medication, the diagnosis, and so on. And to be honest, we didn't implement this, so this is what we are going to do next. But this is obviously, again, text analytics based on the content of the text. Lessons learned for this project. First of all, surprisingly, if you have, well, not so surprisingly, but if you have very different types of documents, you can easily separate them even with 500 training documents per class on average, which is cool, because this is not a lot of training, of labeling data effort. You just take a couple of hours, set an expert in front of a computer, the labels, and you can separate it automatically afterwards. Anyway, it took us in total 20 days for getting the data in the right format, building the labeling tool, defining what are the classes that we want to have, running the labeling. Doing the machine learning part, even with 6 different algorithms, comparing them and stuff like that, was something like 5 to 6 days. So, the rule that labeling and data acquisition data is much more effort than clicking the button and running some machine learning algorithm applies here as well. And what we also figured out, which I haven't shown here, is that the amount of training data, so the learning curve, is very important, but also the quality of the training data. So we figured that after the first phase, we had a lot of labeling mistakes, and we went back and changed a little bit the classes and adapted them to the labeling error because people couldn't really distinguish between medical reports and final reports, which is something like a different document, but basically it says what has been done to a patient, and there was a hard distinction between these two. Now, I want to go one step back. Maybe I go upstairs again. How can you approach such a project if you want to do it on your own? You have a huge amount of documents. How can you approach them? The first thing is that you have to ask you, do I really need an automatic tool? And that's a serious question. We have run now about 45 projects on text analytics, and we had been asked a lot of times, well, we want to have something like automatic processing for our documents. And the first question is always, how many documents do you have? And then comes the answer, oh, we have 200 per year. And then you say, okay, 200 per year, this means less than a document per day, so just read it, do it manually, and you're good. And as soon as you have more than, say, 100 per month, you can think about it. But there is a boundary where you have to have a minimum number of documents, such that it's really worth it. Second, ask an expert. how much will it take? Because if you do the project, it will be always very expensive, to be honest. It will take a lot of time. I said 20 days for aggregating the data, and if it is not worth it, okay, but you should have a good educated guess at the beginning, before you start the project. Otherwise you say, okay, I start, and then you spend 30, 50 days, and maybe it's not worth it. Then, if you get an estimate multiplied by at least 3, maybe even more. I mean, our experience is really, you start with a simple project, and the question is very simple, and then, oh, the customer comes and says, but I want to have more classes. Not only 2 different classes, but I want to have 20. So it really grows. And then he comes and says, oh, you can use my data, which I have from the last 10 years, but in between we changed the data format, and in between we changed this and this and this, and in the end you have to label it, which is a lot of work. And so if you start the project, you can really expect to have it much more expensive than you estimated. Then build a proof of concept where you really access the data, and afterwards integrate the labeling process into your business process. So if you have someone, or you need some expert to go out of his business, daily business, sit down and label your data, they will not do that, usually. They are not keen to do that. But if you integrate it into the business process, and you can show that it brings them something, they can do it faster already with some pre-trained classifier that we did, then they will be at least likely to do the labeling also on a high quality. And labeling is not really the fun part of the day. So sitting in the front of a computer for 3 hours labeling one document after the other is not really what people want to do usually. And finally, retrain often. So deploy a solution, show the people that it works, take new labels, retrain it again and again and again. Now I think I have a couple of minutes left. How many? 4. You didn't show the 2-minute, that was not sure. Oh. But there is also, okay. So, how much does a project cost? I didn't put the numbers here because the slides will go on the internet, but this is somewhat to indicate, on one hand, how large the projects can be, and on the other hand, how much labeling in comparison to technology development, implementation, machine learning can take. So let's start at the left-hand side. These are the standard classification tasks. There are already existing technologies that you can take out of the box, some frameworks, and you just have to label your data, a couple of days maybe, run it through the tools and get a solution. Very easy. 3, 4, 5 days and you have a solution for this one. You can even buy an API and just use pre-trained solutions, so that's very easy. We did a project for job ad classification. The question, is a job ad on the internet suitable for a beginner in a job? And that was only a binary decision. Is it suitable, yes or no? And you can think about, oh, if it is written something like, you need 3 years of experience, and obvious it's not suitable, whereas if it is written, you can start from scratch, then it is. So this is also a very simple question. What I talked now about was the medical documentation classification. We had a little bit of effort in, say, the technology that we developed, but most of the effort was in the labeling part, of course, the data preparation. And the effort in total for the entire project until now would have been something like 30, 35 days. And now the large blocks here. Let me start with that one. This is classification of legal documents, which means you have a contract of, say, 10 pages, and you want to detect what is written in the contract, what are the entities that are mentioned in the contract, and is it a complete and viable contract or not. This is a large project, which is about 500,000 francs, Swiss francs at the moment, running with the university. And they want to identify for each clause in the contract what type of clause is it? Is it for liability, or is it for jurisdiction, or when the termination of the contract? And they are labeling a lot. And we're developing a little bit technology, but they have employed, I think, at the moment, 14 people about to label the documents. So here it is important to have huge amount of documents which are labeled in a very precise way on the sentence level, which is an incredible amount of work. And the last is the reputation monitoring system. This is even larger, something like 700,000 francs. They don't do labeling at all because they have done it already. So we're cheating here a little bit. They have run the company for a couple of years. They have already thousands of labeled documents, but we have to re-implement their labeling mechanism, and they want to have it on a very, very high quality level. So we have to spend, say, the next 2 years to achieve their level of quality. So depending on what kind of project you have, you can have it for 2 or 3 days, or say the next 3 years. And this is it. Thank you for your attention.